Our second stop is a third grade classroom in Indianapolis, where another teacher, Latasha Rowley, is doing a unit on poetry. To help our students learn to write poems, Latasha has immersed them in the genre. She's placed books and Xeroxed copies of poems in baskets at the center of their work tables. She's guiding them in an exploration of the elements of poetry, and she's encouraging them to experiment with subjects and techniques. Today, Latasha is using another strategy with her fledgling poets, the touchstone text.
A touchstone text is a text chosen by an instructor or a teacher or the leader of the group as a teaching tool. The teacher, his or herself, has read and fallen in love with this text first. I think love of a text guides everything. And then read, and inside that text was able to see like a zillion things they could teach this particular group of students. It's a text that when they choose it, they aren't really concerned if the students love it or not. They love it. They're not really concerned if it's an independent read for each student in their class, because the students aren't ever really going to be inside the text by themselves.
The poem I wanted to share with you was one that I really love. And it's called, and you'll see it in your basket of things because this will be a poem we'll spend time with. It's called Mother to Son. Well, son, I'll tell you, life for me ain't been no crystal stair. It's had tacks in it, and splinters, and boards torn up, and places with no carpet on the floor, bare. But all the time, I's been a-climbing on, and reaching landings, and turning corners, and sometimes going in the dark, where there ain't been no light. So, boy, don't you turn back. Don't you sit down on the steps, 'cause you finds it kinda hard. Don't you fall now, for I's still going, honey. I's still climbing, and life for me ain't been no crystal stair. And that's by our Langston Hughes. And you're going to have a chance to look at this. One thing I want us to notice, at the very beginning, he used some things to help us flow into the poem. There's lots of punctuation, lots. Well, comma, son, comma, I'll, and we know that's a contraction, right? Which means I'll tell you. Now, I put this in red. What are these things called? Do you remember? Anybody remember those things? Let me ask Jayla.
Things that come right after, the sentence. A little sentence when you're telling somebody.
Okay. So it kind of put a break there, didn't it? Okay. Do we remember what it's called? It has a special name. Donna? No? Don't remember? You just know what it does? Todd?
Colon.
A colon. Thank you. And as someone shared with us, the colon, it kind of gives us a break, and then we go into the rest of the sentence. So, we're going to look at another poem, because right now I'm just kind of sharing a few little poems with us so we can hear them, and then we'll have a chance to look at them. But that's something important that poets use in poetry. Another poet is a female, and you probably saw her name on the chart before we flipped it over. This whole book is poetry by Nikki Grimes. And this is going to be one of the books we're going to spend some time with to look at a lot of her poems. This is one that I want to share with you that is one of my favorites, which I have a lot of favorites. I love poetry. Now, what's Miss Rowley's favorite color?
Purple.
So it's something about purple, isn't it? Because it's my favorite. Purple. Once you've met my friend Denitra, you can spot her miles away. She's the only girl around here who wears purple every day. Whether summer's almost over or spring rains are pouring down, if you see a girl in purple, it must be Denitra Brown. Purple socks and jeans and sneakers, purple ribbons for her hair, purple shirts and slacks and sweaters. even purple underwear. Purple dresses, shorts, and sandals. Purple coat and purple gloves. There was a line in the poem that also used some of those markings that we just saw in another poem. So we need to look at this one more closely. There's just no mistake about it. And what's this thing called? Colon. Purple's what Denitra loves. And then how do we end it? What is that thing? Exclamation point. So there's probably some excitement in that, isn't it? I believe that the Touchstone text builds the community. For one, we are having a piece that we're sharing. This will be a piece that we can all refer to, that we can all connect our writing to, and we can, you know, as we're talking about our piece, we'll say, well, I did something like Langston Hughes, or I did something like Nikki Grimes. And since those are our two people we're going to focus on, it helps everyone in the whole classroom be able to focus on that same piece of work. A lot of times when I pick a text for our genre study, I try to see what kinds of things are in that text that you can teach from. And today, I just picked one little thing that happened to be in both texts. And that gave them a chance to see a punctuation mark that they weren't aware of. So now, as they look in other pieces of poetry, they're going to see that punctuation mark because a lot of poets use it. And you just try to see a piece that has a lot of teachable items. And I picked two different texts because I wanted to have one for my females and one for my males. And that way they can understand that a poet can be either male or female. So I tried to pick two things that we want to take a look at throughout the study. And that way at the end of the study, these pieces they'll know almost by heart because they'll be so used to hearing them and seeing them and just kind of discovering what's there.
In another urban classroom, this time in Phoenix, Arizona, veteran teacher Sylvia Edgerton has set up a dynamic workshop where her fifth graders are encouraged to think and write independently. This independence extends to their reading. Through multiple lessons and examples, Sylvia has taught the students how to read like writers, how to recognize and analyze the strategies authors use in their published work. Moreover, she's encouraged them to analyze texts on their own and then apply what they've observed to their writing. When Sylvia confers with students about their writing questions and dilemmas, she sometimes recommends books that might provide relevant models of writing craft. But more importantly, her students are free to choose their own mentor texts to help them draft and revise their work.
A mentor text is chosen by the students. It is what a mentor is in the world. It is chosen by an individual student to use to help them create a text. It has to be an independent read. The student has to be able to read it and has to have read it and loved it. And all of the things that I say about the Touchstone now apply to the mentor text.
The last time we talked, Luis, we talked about how in your writing piece you seem to have a story within a story, and then you have a thing with time where it's like 5 minutes later, 30 minutes later, and so I asked you to go back and look at some of the books that we've read and some of the books that you're reading to see how authors do the time and the story within a story, and tell me what you found.
And this one this is the only story I could find, story within a story. And I found it when Hortensia is telling Esperanza about the rat.
Oh, And what did you notice that Pam Munoz writing did?
She used like, if they were remembering, she used like, like a long time ago.
Okay, did you mark it anywhere in there?
No.
No. So she just said, what did she do? She just said, I remember, and then she told the story.
Remember.
And did she do anything different with the way the words were written?
Yeah, she, can you see that they're straight and bolted? She, the other ones, she did a slanted. She slanted them a little bit.
So the slanted was the story within a story. And then what did you decide about the time?
And Twilight comes twice. It uses what's happening at the time.
Okay, so would you show me what you mean by that?
Like right here it says, in the summer dust hisses on the sprinklers, it flushes out millions of mosquitoes and armies of bats to eat them.
Okay.
So that like when that's happening, when it's the water's flushing the mosquitoes and the bats are coming and stuff.
Okay, and how would that help you with your writing piece, though?
Like right here on the options, I use part of this for Miss Romo.
Okay, tell me. Go ahead.
Miss Romo on the options, number one, I erased it because he had too much information. Because she sees it differently.
Okay.
When the moon is a quarter around half of the earth, she said that she looked like a quarter and then the moon and then moon quarter.
Oh, okay.
So she said that was too much information. Then we look at this one, I circled it, and it says early in the morning before sunrise. And she says the morning says a.m. and if it's 3 o'clock, it will be early in the morning. So I said early in the morning before sunrise.
Okay, and how is that related to what you read in Ralph Fletcher's?
That's like time telling time without saying exactly numbers.
I think that students can learn so much more from published pieces than what I can actually do. I mean, today when I had the conference with Luis, when he first went out last week to look at some of the books, I noticed some of the books he had that he was looking at, and I was surprised that he brought Twilight Comes Twice back with him, and he found the excerpt that he felt served his purpose, and it did. And then the same thing with Esperanza Rising. I didn't expect him to bring Esperanza Rising, and I didn't even remember. And so I have as many teachers in the classroom as I have books, along with the students that are in the classroom. So once one student understands how to use the mentor authors, then it just goes from student to student. And, we have hundreds of teachers in the classrooms besides myself.